Guess I will call to order the August 17th, 2020 Board of Aldermen regular meeting. Would everybody please join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Shelley.
Alderwoman Ebling. Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Here.
Alderwoman Tice.
Here.
Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
And Alderman Weggie.
Here.
Do we have Alderwoman Ebling? I'm not.
No.
Okay. Well, we will move forward and hopefully she can join us. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda as submitted? Any objection to approving by acclamation? Alderman Weggie.
Just for clarification, if I want something pulled off consent, I do it when we get there, correct?
That's correct. That's fine. Seeing no objection, it will be approved. Next on the agenda, we have no public hearing, so we're down to item 5, citizen comments. Anybody in the public care to address the board? Now is the time to do so. I think we have one hand raised. Is that right, Shelley?
Yes, Mr. Bowman.
Mr. Bowman.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. As you all know, my name is Matt Bowman. I live at 2642 Dorothy Avenue. First of all, I'd like to start off by thanking a few of the aldermen. I recently sent Steve Lokmar some videos of Dorothy Avenue after one of the recent storms. These videos show our entire street under at least 3 inches of running water. Now, this shows that despite the board's claim that everything will be fine, adding additional water to our street would be disastrous. Steve responded to our email quickly and said he would share the videos, and we appreciate that. I also would like to thank Alderman Gould and Weggie for coming down and looking at the proposed location for the new intersection for the Dorothy Van Markway intersection. We laid out rope to show where the road will go. And once it was laid out, it showed that indeed the apartment exit is aimed directly at our house. But again, we appreciate them coming down and looking at it with us, which is something we have asked the entire board to do. But besides this, we have almost had no communication with the aldermen. Our emails have been ignored and our phone calls have been unanswered and unreturned. As I have mentioned before, my son sent an email expressing his deep concern over the fact the board wishes to aim a road at his bedroom. He got exactly 0 responses. We also have asked every alderman the same question. Would you want to live at 2642 Dorothy Avenue when this plan is constructed? No one has answered this very simple question. I guess the board feels they don't have to answer it since it doesn't affect them. None of you will have to live with the danger and daily disruption that will come with this plan. I also understand that the board doesn't want to talk about this anymore. And trust me, I'm sick and tired of talking about this also. I know the aldermen feel that this decision is done, no matter how unsafe, unfair, or illogical this plan is, and that we just need to deal with it. It is what it is. I also understand the board is in a difficult position, having to defend an indefensible plan. How can one defend a plan that is more unsafe, more expensive, and patently unfair? You defend it by simply ignoring those asking the questions. Because of this, we have had to pursue other options. As you know, we have a change.org petition that is currently at 842 supporters, including 100 Brentwood residents and another 250 from the greater St. Louis area. Now, especially Brentwood residents especially look at this and look at the plan and see how unfair it is, but they also ask themselves, when is Brentwood going to come to take my property or destroy my sense of safety and property values? We also know that Brentwood Bound is trying to partner with many organizations in order to get federal funding. Organizations such as East-West Gateway and Great Rivers Greenway. Now, Great Rivers Greenway mission statement says, our mission is to make St. Louis a more vibrant place to live, work, and play by developing a regional network of greenways. So we have been in contact with them and we have asked them, does the Dorothy Van Markway intersection fit with this? And are they comfortable aligning with Brentwood Bound's plan that unfairly sacrifices at home to achieve their goals? Now, it is our hope that a solution can be found. Please keep in mind there's another plan available to the board, a plan nearly 100% complete, and most importantly, doesn't target one family. We also hope that going forward, the board will communicate better with us. It is hard to come up with a solution when there is no communication. We are reasonable people and we are open to a possible solution. And that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Shelley, is there anybody else that cares to address the board? No? You're
Hello?
muted. I'm sorry, we have somebody else? Oh, okay, yes. Let's see here. I've got Sharon Christopher.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sharon Christopher. I live at 2642 Dorothy. Thank you for your time today. I've been wondering how many petition signatures or phone calls or letters or emails it would take for the board to change their minds and reject the Van Markway Dorothy plan. What's that magic number? It doesn't seem to be 842 people. Is there one at all? I've been thinking about why people run for office and what drives this decision, and you all certainly have your own stories. I can't speak for any of you, but I imagine oftentimes there's a strong call to serve or an injustice you witnessed at some point that you believed you could help prevent or fix. It's a lot of work. You are going to have to make unpopular decisions, and you will never make everyone happy. As you continue to move forward with the Van Markway Dorothy plan, I hope each of you is supporting the plan because you believe 100% that it's the fair and safe and right thing to do, despite all those opposing your decision. Because the alternative speaks to the uglier side of politics, where you can't admit you're wrong, you lack the courage to fix the mistake, and you don't really care about how disruptive this plan will be because your family isn't impacted. Being that person probably goes against everything I imagine you stood for when you ran for office, and you would let down every voter who supported you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Christopher. We also have now Carter.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. If you could just state your name and your address, please.
My name is Carter Bowman, and I live on 2642 Dorothy Avenue. And these are my thoughts on the Dorothy plan for the Brentwood Van Markway. I am going to be a freshman next year, and I really don't think the Dorothy plan is safe. Ever since I have first meeting in March, I've been thinking about the plan. First off, I want to say that Brentwood is taking a huge risk on doing this plan. This plan is not safe. A vehicle could easily slide right into our house, it's raining or snowing, or and not to mention any drunk drivers or yeah. One alderman told us, look at the big picture. I thought about this statement for a long time, but the big picture for us is having an intersection on a hill face at our house with possibly no people. We'll be stuck in this house for a lot longer than I intended because no one is going to buy this house with an intersection literally 10 feet away from the house. I mean, I know I wouldn't want to buy it, and you guys know that you wouldn't want to buy it. I'm pretty sure you've heard the saying, put yourself into someone's shoes. Once again, no one on the board of aldermen would want to be in our position. And by the way, when I went to the meeting in March, I saw on the pamphlet that they gave out that MoDOT was saying that it's unsafe. Red flag. Plan is safe, and I don't really trust it. It's also true that, you know, even if you're looking at looking at the map of it, it's just obviously not the best plan. So, thank you for your time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Carter, and thank you for taking time to address this board. I know we all appreciate that. Do we have anybody else? Shelley, I don't see any other hands.
I do not.
Okay. Any aldermen care to respond? Okay. Next on the agenda is the item 6, announcements, appointments, proclamations, and recognitions. We have quite a few appointments for tonight. The first is to the Brentwood Redevelopment Corporation. As some of you might remember, we had 2 aldermen who were sitting on that corporation who are no longer aldermen, that being Tom Kramer and Andy Leahy. I appointed, with the board's approval, Alderwoman Sims back in February to fill one of those 2 vacancies. And I'm coming before you tonight to get your approval to appoint Alderman Gould to fill the vacancy created by Andy Leahy. Secondly, we have 2 residents or citizen vacancies. One was created by Alderman Gould, who was not an alderman at the time. And then the second one was, I can't remember the gentleman, Chris Jones, I believe was his name, who's moved out of Brentwood. And so what I've done is I would like to appoint both Tony Ponder and Jack Shelton to fill those 2 vacancies. Do we have, you have all the background information on all 3 of them. I'm assuming Alderman Gould passes flying colors since since you approved him to be a resident on the corporation. Is there any objection to taking all 3 of these up at one time? Okay, then the chair would would entertain a motion to approve the appointments to the Brentwood Redevelopment Corporation, that being Alderman Gould, Tony Ponder, and Jack Shelton.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderwoman Sims, seconded by Alderwoman Tice. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Motion carries 8-0, according to my count. Next on the agenda, we have another appointment, and that is we have an opening, one last vacancy on the Brentwood Library Board. And I would like for the board to approve the appointment of Kelsey Bergkemper to the library board. She comes highly recommended by the library board itself, and I defer to that board frequently whenever there are any openings. And if she has their seal of approval, then that's good enough for me. Do we have and again, you have the background information on Kelsey as well. Do we have a motion to approve Kelsey Bergkemper?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Alderwoman Ebeling, seconded by Alderwoman O'Neill. Any discussion on that? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Next on the agenda is Mayor and Alderman reports. And I have one matter that I just wanted to bring to your attention. And you have this letter, but just in case members in the public don't have access to it or for whatever reason, I just wanted to bring to the board's attention where we are and what's called the CARES Act funding. This is a letter that I'm going to read into the record, a letter that was sent under my signature to the St. Louis County COVID Oversight Committee back last Tuesday, August the 10th. Dear Ms. Diane Valenti and/or Council Administrative Director or designee, St. Louis County received more than $170 million directly from the federal government as part of the CARES Act to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. The U.S. Treasury Department is responsible for issuing guidance on the use of these funds. Initially, the guidance was narrow, and all the funds had to be used for testing, public health, business loans, etc. Using funds had to be used for using funds to help stabilize local government finances due to loss of revenue was not permitted initially. However, since then, President Trump instructed the Treasury Secretary to issue guidance allowing for the funds to be used to pay ongoing salaries of all public safety employees. Basically, the feds are saying that providing any police, fire, or EMS service during the COVID pandemic is considered responding to the event and is an permitted use of the funds. The guidance now says that funding can be used to meet payroll expenses for public safety, public health, healthcare, human services, and similar employees whose services are substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency. St. Louis County has around $120 million in unencumbered CARES funding still available that must be spent by the end of 2020 or returned to the federal government. St. Louis County received these funds based on the county's population as a whole. Therefore, it would only seem fair that if the county chooses to use these funds to pay county police departments, then the same logic should apply to municipal first responders as well. We all can agree that St. Louis County provides non-contracted law enforcement services only to the unincorporated areas of the county, or 32.15% of the county's total population. The remaining 67.85% of the residents of the county are served by municipal police departments or contracted law enforcement services paid for out of municipal funds. To date, the city of Brentwood has incurred public safety payroll costs for fire, emergency medical services, and law enforcement during the eligibility period in excess of $910,000, $104.58 for payroll and related fringe benefit costs. All such costs are presumed by the U.S. Department of Treasury to be COVID-related expenses during the eligibility period. I encourage you to support and provide a recommendation to the county executive and the county council to allocate these funds to municipal public safety departments. Because of the shutdown and the resulting lost revenues to municipalities, we need your help now. Again, the purpose for that was, as it says, there's $174 million that was sent to St. Louis County as a result of the CARES Act. And the reason the county got that money is because the county has about 1 million people in it. St. Louis City got substantially less. Now, my point of view, my argument, as well as the argument of the vast majority of the mayors in St. Louis County, is that that money should be well, first of all, Sam Page allocated about 47 million of that to municipalities. Our argument is that that 47 million should be distributed to the municipalities on a pro rata basis, that is by population. And under that formula, Brentwood would stand to receive $1.1 million. However, our council person, Lisa Clancy, disagrees with that approach. In fact, I'm meeting with her tomorrow at 10:30 to further discuss this. Her approach is that every single dollar of that 47 million should be spent in North County, and that the municipalities of Webster Groves, Maplewood, Brentwood, Richmond Heights, Clayton, Ladue should receive none of the dollars from that. And again, I have a problem with that, a fundamental problem, because the vast majority of the services that are provided to St. Louis County residents are provided by us, by the municipality, not by St. Louis County. So it seems fundamentally unfair that they would take 100% of those dollars and send them to one particular area of St. Louis County instead of distributing them equitably among St. Louis County, the municipalities of St. Louis County. You know, the reason we were shut down is because of actions of the interim county executive, Sam Page. I don't take any issue with that, but my problem is if he does that, that results in a decrease in revenue to those businesses and then by extension to those municipalities. The lifeblood of all municipalities is sales tax revenue. And his actions resulted in a decrease in that revenue. He cut off the lifeblood for these municipalities. And even to this day, a lot of these businesses are not permitted to operate at 100% capacity. Again, I'm not taking an issue with that, but my point is that results in a decrease of revenue to the municipalities, those same municipalities that provide these essential services to the vast majority of the residents of St. Louis County. If that is the case, and they have a chance to try and make us whole, it is incumbent upon St. Louis County to do so. So I wanted to share that with you and let you know that I'm going to continue to fight for Brentwood to try and get this money. And I would encourage each and every one of you to reach out to Lisa Clancy and to Sam Page and to and hopefully in support of this. That's it for the mayor's report. I'll try to get off my soapbox. So let's move on to Alderwoman Evelyn.
Yes. What?
Do you have any report?
Oh, no, no report.
Okay. Let's see, Alderman Gould, any report? Alderman Lockmuller.
Thank you, Your Honor. Public Safety Committee will meet virtually next Wednesday, the 26th at 5:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman O'Neill. No report?
No report.
Okay. Alderman Plufka.
I don't have any report. I just would be curious to know from you, Mr. Mayor, whether or not any of the other constituent cities within District 5 sent a similar letter to Ms. Clancy. Do you know?
I'm trying to remember the ones. I can tell you that I am meeting with a group of those mayors in the 5th district on Wednesday. So tomorrow I'm meeting with Alderwoman or the councilperson Clancy to talk about this. And then on Wednesday, I'm meeting with a number of the mayors that comprise the 5th district because they are equally upset and trying to figure out what we can do to try and get the council to release those dollars.
Okay. I have no report.
Okay. Alderwoman Sims.
I have on my schedule from our last Ways and Means committee meeting that we are set for our August meeting on Thursday, August 20th at 5:30, unless I'm wrong. So that's my only announcement.
Okay, thank you. Let's see here, Alderwoman Tice.
No report.
And Alderman Weggie.
No report.
Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is item 8, City Administrator Report. The first item is the report from Kerber, Eck, and Breckel, the independent review of the expenditures of the proceeds of the CO certificates of participation. Who do we have speaking on that, Bola?
Courtney Cannon here in replace of Gina Cochran.
Okay. You have the floor, Courtney.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. My name is Courtney Cannon, and I'm a senior accountant with Kerber, Eck, and Breckel, filling in for Gina Cochran to present a report on the agreed upon procedures related to the expenditures of the 2018 and 2019 Certificate of Participation proceeds for the period from April 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2020. We would like to note that agreed upon procedures do not constitute an audit, an examination, or a review, and accordingly, we have not expressed an opinion or conclusion on the expenditures of the Certificate of Participation proceeds. The procedures performed were agreed to by the Board of Aldermen and the Mayor of the City of Brentwood, and the sufficiency of those procedures is solely the responsibility of the Board of Aldermen and the Mayor of the City of Brentwood, and we make no representation regarding the sufficiency of the procedures. Regarding the 2018 Certificates of Participation, the procedures and associated findings for the Series 2018 Certificate of Participation requests number 46 through 53, which include 106 invoices totaling $2,354,092.05 are as follows. First, signed contracts were reviewed for all invoices with the exception of purchases made from sole source providers, purchases made on the open market with a value of less than $2,000, purchases requiring a quick turnaround as allowed under Purchasing Code Section 135.120, selection of professional services, and purchases from subcontractors covered under previously approved contracts with the City of Brentwood, no exceptions noted. Second, we examined invoices to determine if City of Brentwood policy and internal controls were followed, comparing all 106 invoices to the City of Brentwood policies and internal control procedures. 3 exceptions were noted, in which the capital forms for a $4,857.40 invoice from Creative Entourage, a $4,882.04 invoice from Stone Strength Systems, LLC, and a $9,140 invoice from the Davy Tree Expert Company were signed by Karen Shaw as the finance director, but did not indicate approval by the department director or the city administrator. However, check request authorization forms were properly completed and approved for all 3 invoices, and all invoices paid by the bank trustee are placed on a warrant list prepared by the finance director, reviewed by the city administrator, and placed on the Board of Aldermen meeting agenda for approval prior to payment. One additional exception was noted in which the amount of a $24,693.70 invoice from Armstrong Teasdale was incorrectly stated on the check request authorization form, on the warrant list, and on the written request for disbursement form as $27,318.85. This resulted in a $2,625.15 overpayment to Armstrong Teasdale on April 10th, 2020. However, per review of Armstrong Teasdale's subsequent invoice number 2528070, a credit was applied to the balance due for the total $2,625.15 overpayment, bringing charges to date in line with actual billings. Finally, we examined invoices for proper payments allowed by the official statement of the certificate of participation, comparing all 106 invoices to the official statement of the certificate of participation for allowability, no exceptions noted. Regarding the Series 2019 certificates of participation, no written requests or disbursements of project costs were submitted during the period from April 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2020 from the Series 2019 project fund account. Accordingly, no procedures were performed for the Series 2019 certificates of participation for this period. Thank you for your time. That concludes the information I have prepared for you today, but I am available for questions as needed.
Yeah, do we have any questions for Courtney about the report? Okay, thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is COVID-19 revenue and expenditure projections. Karen, I'm assuming you're taking this one?
Yes. Let me start with my August memo for tonight's meeting. I'm getting it out. Which is the sales tax update through what we received last week in the bank. And on my page 2, but you all have it. And basically what it showed you was that while we may be comparing last year's this time, we may not be where we were, but we are on budget. And that can be attributed to mainly when Bola and I worked on the budget last year, we kind of made a determination, and in talking with the management team, to keep revenues and particularly sales tax either flat or a very little growth. Well, obviously that helped us this year, especially since the COVID virus hit us. What would have happened had the COVID virus not hit us? Probably we would be ahead of the game. And at the end of the year, that could have translated into a greater addition into the fund balances. But because we were somewhat conservative, we are on budget right now. And as I said in my memo, you know, we thought we were basing everything on the adopted budget for 2020. And we said we might see a decrease of 45% each month through August, 20% for September, and then on budget the last quarter of the month, of the year, I mean. It doesn't look like that's going to happen, but again, I can't predict what's going to happen September, October, November, and December. It's a toss-up with everything, but we could have another shutdown, and we could still see some decreases, but I don't think we're going to see the decreases that were predicted, what we thought might happen. Regarding the economic development sales tax, we've received $1.3 million. And again, as you've already been told, the $514,000 interest payment was capitalized out of the bond proceeds. So we've got about a $1.2 million payment left to make this year. And you can see we've already got the money to pay that, $1.3 million. with all that said, I will lead it into the next portion, which is what BOLA had asked the department heads to consider what they would like to see being released in cost containment savings that they gave up or they mentioned earlier in the year. And then the caveat was added that don't expect to come back and ask for all of it at one time or even all of it, period, this whole entire year, which is why they were asked to prioritize what they felt was the most needed. They did that, and I think BOLA provided you in the board packet. I particularly honed in on the slides she mentioned, which were 17, 18, and 19, which were the cost containments in the general fund, capital improvement fund, and the parks and stormwater fund. I think BOLA told me, and I believe I saw it in Eric's information as far as parks and stormwater, because of the lost revenue from the fact that Parks and Rec can't be open and there are programs that he can't do, and that's lost revenue to us. We won't get that back. It's not so much of dealing with the sales tax. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, BOLA and or Eric, they're not asking for any of their cost containments to be released. And from there, I'll just start with administration. We had the personnel vacancies of the assistant finance director and the part-time finance person for half the year. Well, we're in August and we haven't filled those positions. So we did start a temp, but that's no benefits or salary. That's coming out of a contractual operating account. But at any rate, we have seen those salary savings from those already. So we've probably already saved the $55,000 that was for administration. As far as the rest, I think at this point, BOLA has asked the various departments to be prepared for what it is they're going to be asking for, and with them knowing that they aren't. I personally wouldn't recommend that you release all the cost containments tonight. That would be my personal recommendation. However, they have put in their priorities, and then it would be up to this board to decide what they would like to see released or allowed to be released. So I don't know who you want to go first, BOLA, as far as if you want them to mention what they wanted to. For example, Terry, I know Terry had some things maybe, or whoever. I don't know who you wanted to go next to, or if the board had questioned as to what the cost containments were that they wanted to, wanted to hear about. Or I will entertain any questions.
Okay, so in summary, thank you, Karen. So we're 4 or 5 months post the shutdown, and as the board will remember, I think it was the May 4th meeting. I don't recall the exact date when these numbers were released to you. And again, the goal was to give some idea, some guesstimate as to what was going to happen because of the shutdown. We didn't have the numbers, and so number one, we estimated a substantial decrease in the revenue side, and we also took steps on the expenditure side through cost containment. Now here we are months later, and we see that it's not as dire as we had feared. At least it hasn't been yet, and I think all indications are that we're going to be okay. So now does the board want to take some type of measure to release some of the holds, if you will, on these costs that had already been approved in the budget? You guys had just simply said, we're not going to spend that money until we know where we are on the revenue side. We now have a better idea. And, like as Karen said, her recommendation would be not to release, obviously, all the costs. Some of them we can anyway, because some of it was for things that we're not going to do. The Brentwood days, for instance. And some of these other matters, it doesn't really matter because where we are in the time of the year. But I don't know. I think BOLA, I think the board, I don't know, does the board have a view on this one way or the other? Can we get some direction for the board? BOLA, do you have an opinion on this? You want to weigh in? You're muted.
Mayor Dimmitt, I believe you and Karen have really explained what is before the board for consideration this evening. So, we have cost containment in general fund across the board, and then we have cost containment in capital. In talking to the departments, I think that a majority department heads, a majority of them would agree that there are items in the capital improvement budget that they would like to proceed with. So I would start with the fire department. There is an ambulance that Chief Curtin would like to purchase, and because the interest rates are low, this is a great time to do it. And we had budgeted, I believe, approximately 135,000 on that debt service, and now it's closer to 117. So he would like, and he's been able, working with Karen, to obtain different quotes for financing fees, and so he would like to start that process. Of course, he will also present that to the Public Safety Committee and Ways and Means before we move forward. And we started renovation of the firehouse, bringing it into compliance for the ADA. So we would like to complete that this year, but I don't think it's imperative for the board to release those funds at this date. We could come back maybe October and have the board release those funds. So just going down slide 17 and 18 in the power presentation that we presented to the board back in May, we itemize all those items. In IT, there are badge access, cameras at Public Works, disaster recovery planning. In talking to Larry Covey, he requests that the city, that the Board of Aldermen release that entire amount. Planning development, apparently, and this was my mistake, the 21,000 really is the ongoing subscription for all the modules that we have for the building permit department. So that definitely should be reinstated, because we would need to make that subscription payment. And then lastly, Public Works. So I think if you begin to consider what can be released in that department, definitely the mill and overlay of the asphalt streets, the concrete slab replacements, those in my mind are important that we go forward with that, so that we can get those out of the way, so that Dan has other mill and overlay that he definitely would like to bring before the board in the 21 fiscal year. And I believe I've heard Dan many times, as Eric, talk about some vehicles that need to be replaced. So if you look at slide 18, there are 2 vehicles for the Public Works Department, and then Eric also has 1 vehicle in the Stormwater and Parks Improvement. So that's the only item that Eric is asking be replaced. So across the board, there's been savings on personnel, because we have deferred all savings, all filling of these vacancy positions, with the exception of public safety. So that would be police and fire. I think the last 2 vacancies we have in the fire department, we hope to bring them on sometime in the month of September. So, and I know the police department under general fund, one of the items that they offered up was the purchase of ammunition, which they definitely need. So that falls under supplies. I would ask that the board consider those as well. So I would just start there and see, what the board desires to do.
Well, I guess this is, in my opinion, it's a little cumbersome, because we have so many items in front of us. And I'm wondering if we'd just be better served. And I understand the need to get this, to release some of these funds, but maybe we're better off just to kick this over to Alderwoman Sims, your Ways and Means Committee, to take a look at this. And when's your next meeting?
Thursday.
Thursday.
And that was my initial reaction as well, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if there's some immediacy between now and our next Board of Aldermen meeting that we should. I think I tend to agree, with Karen, that proceed cautiously. That some of these expenses can come out, but maybe not all. But I'd like to have an opportunity to sort of work through each of them and weigh the necessities. Is that something, Vola, we can take up on Thursday? Are we are we throwing a wrench into things? I mean, I don't, certainly I think the police need ammunition. So I don't want to create, I just want to proceed thoughtfully.
It's good timing.
Yeah, I
I just
agree.
wanted to
I think, so go ahead, Karen.
I was just gonna make sure I see Terry's on, Terry Curtin. If you would unmute Terry. I just want to make sure that you were trying to prepare anyway for possibly the September board meeting for the that lease proposal on the ambulance, right, Terry?
Yes, that's correct, Karen. We will have updated numbers from Commerce Bank this Friday. I'm happy to present to Ways and Means on Thursday, and we had planned to present to Public Safety next week. So we'll have the latest information Friday afternoon, I hope, which will miss Ways and Means, but will definitely hit Public Safety. So I anticipate the numbers to be as good as what we have currently from Commerce. Hoping that
And the thing about they did Commerce Trust is the one that handles the police pension, and Terry and Ronnie and his committee, got more than one quote. They got the quote that was, I think, nationally bid out for leasing, but to stay local in that, he was able to get, and they gave probably what, Terry, half, or more than half of a rate better than what the other bid was. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't under any time constraints there, but I think, Terry, you were prepared anyway for this to probably not go to the board, the full board, until September, so we're still good.
Yeah, my goal was to present this at Public Safety on the 26th with the thought that it would go to the board on the 8th of September. The only other wrench that's been thrown into this is just the chassis for the ambulance have cut off from Ford, so we have to jump on a 20, which means we need to move quickly, or we go into a 21, which means increased costs. So it's the board's decision on how they want to go about that, but we'll talk more about that at Ways and Means and Public Safety.
Okay. All right, great.
Alderman Waggy?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me a simpler approach instead of going through the priorities at the Board of Aldermen, because I think we got to rely on the department heads and BOLA to tell us what the priorities are, know what those day-to-day priorities is, that we could give general direction guidance of, we did this bid pullback assuming 45% reduction of revenue, I believe through October was the original assumption, that maybe we give guidance of take 50% of the budget restrictions off and then prioritize those, as you see fit. I mean, we've already agreed to everything that's in the budget. So I feel like the prioritization, I'm not comfortable talking to that. I'm going to rely on people who know. I mean, would that simplify if we did something like that?
That's what I was thinking. And you articulated it perfectly. Thank you. I think we can do that. It's simpler. But at the same time, I feel that it's important that you all know what on that item they'll be going forward with. So I think we can present that at the Ways and Means Committee meeting rather than going through every item. Kind of summary, like I mentioned at the beginning, is what we would do.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Alderman Lockmuller?
Did I ask a question of Karen regarding the schedule for the economic development sales tax?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Karen, I'm just looking at the last column, the amounts, and the way that even during the height of the pandemic, we took in quite a bit. Is that representative of retail sales during that period, or is there a lag on getting some of these dollars caught up from retailers?
Do you see Dan Cook's on here? I think I'm going to defer to Dan Cook to kind of help out with this. You're muted, Dan, by the way.
There we go, Dan. We can hear you now.
Oh,
Dan,
now you're muted.
understand
There you
Okay,
go.
sorry about
There you
that.
go.
So you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. There is a little bit of a delay, and that's kind of what this chart shows. So if you look at the first month there, January,
Right.
it's showing that the return was filed in the month of February and then processed by the Department of Revenue during the month of February. And then the actual distribution to the city would take place in the very first 10 days of, let's say, March. So
Right.
there is a delay there, depending on when the dollars are spent, anywhere from 30 to 60 days between the time the money is spent at the retailer and the time the city actually sees the dollars from the Department of Revenue.
Okay. So that's what that, when you're looking at April being a pretty good month, some of that could be lagged from previous months, not so much retail sales.
It's possible that some of that spilled over, and that's a good point because normally sales tax returns are due on the 20th of the month, except for quarter's end. When you get to a quarter's end, which includes March, then the return isn't due until the 30th of April. So it's possible you get a delay on those quarters end that would increase some spillover to the next month because of the fact that DOR might not have time to process the return between the time the return is filed and the end of the month, which is in that case the same day. If that makes sense.
I was just hoping this reflects that we've got a pretty pandemic-proof retail base in our city.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but it shows there's been some healthy spending despite the pandemic.
Right.
Yes, I would agree with that 100%.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Plufka, and you are muted.
Build on Steve's comment. Because of that delay in the reporting process, it's really going to take until the first quarter of 2021 when we have an entire year of collection to know whether we're truly 30-some% down, you know, as it suggests in some of these, you know, year-to-date forms that we have right now with this right now. Some of that is artificially low because we don't have that first quarter of where the first quarter is reflective of, you know, 2-3 months of accumulated tax. In the first quarter of this year, it was just the 1 month, then the 2 months, then the 3 months, because there was no tax before January 1st. Wouldn't that be accurate too?
That is very accurate. And as someone at Stiefel pointed out, that basically means that you also didn't get a Christmas season this year because the November and December sales aren't going to show up at all this year because you're not going to get the ones from 2019 because the tax wasn't in effect. And then on a cash basis, you won't get November and December until January and February respectively. So you're not going to get a Christmas or holiday season at all this year as far as cash basis taxes go.
And so while the information shows that there's, you know, that we're lagging behind what we budgeted for this economic development sales tax, we really don't know how far off the mark or how close to the mark we are until probably next spring, I would imagine, right?
The retailers do a considerable amount of their business, as you know, over the holiday season. So yes, to some extent, that's true.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Karen, Dan, or Bola about this? If not, then
Mayor, I'm not sure if Jim Leahy, are they on the call? Dan, do you know? John Claus.
Do not know.
They were invited as well, and if they do not acknowledge their presence in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then I think we can go on. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see them on the list.
Okay.
Thank you, Bola. With that in mind, then I think what we're going to do is kick this over to Thursday for the Ways and Means Committee for you all to take up, however you want to do it, whether it's just a 50% release, 25% release, or if it's by project. leave it in all yours capable hands, and thank you for willing to do that. Next on the agenda is the Brentwood Bound update. Craig.
Good evening, Craig Schluter with Navigate Building Solutions. Starting off with a few project updates. The demo bid package 2 construction still underway. They're currently working on the buildings on Breckenridge Industrial Court. Hopefully you all are watching the site camera that is on the Brentwood Bound website, so you can see time-lapse photos and videos of the demolition in action. And that camera will move around. The contractor will be moving over to the buildings in Norm West Park, the old West buildings, in the next 2 weeks. And that will be the final set of buildings for this bid package. Next is flood mitigation phase 1. The city received bids on July 30th, and the recommended low bidder is over $2 million less than budget. So we're really excited about that because the city has suffered flooding for decades. It's taken the city years and lots of staff and consultants and aldermen and time and mayor's leadership to get to this point. And finally, with your all's approval tonight, we can start construction immediately after that contract's approved. So we're really excited about that because it's taken a tremendous amount of work to get to this point. Next, the material testing services. Brentwood's currently seeking qualifications from a material testing firm. The RFQ was issued on August 5th. Proposals are due on August 26th. And we anticipate bringing a recommendation to the board at the September 21st meeting. Material testing, just to help clarify that. So when the contractor is out in the field, there's an independent firm that does checks to make sure the concrete is in compliance, checks compaction, just to make sure that the materials that are being utilized for the Brentwood Bound improvements do meet the specifications and meet the code requirements. Next is flood mitigation phase 2. Jacobs will be issuing the 60% drawings on August 31st. So that's coming up in the next 2 weeks. And the Deer Creek Greenway Connector, the 60% drawings were issued last Friday and are being printed and distributed this week. And we'll put all those plans on the Brentwood Bound website as usual for anyone's viewing pleasure. Getting into the traditional financial updates, this is a new template that Alderwoman Tice put together. So I'll run through this real quick like normal. This is for the 2018-2019 COP expenditures. There were no construction costs since the last Board of Aldermen meeting. Next is soft costs. Total spend since the last Board of Aldermen meeting is $337,293.76. That is for flood mitigation, Manchester Road improvements, and Deer Creek Greenway Connector engineering and design, project management fees, the East-West Gateway TAP grant deposit, and property appraisals. Next is property acquisitions. Total spend since the last Board of Aldermen meeting is $10,800. That is for reestablishment and property acquisition expenses. Also, high level note, the budget actually went down. That's because with the bids coming in so far under budget, and the bid actually included the Deer Creek Trail, which is a wish list project that you guys approved the design of. And then with the contract approval, that would be approving the construction piece. You'll see at the bottom the categories of funding that there's no, that $1.5 million grant amount is no longer listed there. So really the amounts here are strictly the 2018 and 2019 COP's net amount of $79.6 million, and then the MSD reimbursement amounts. So that's really exciting that not only did the bids come in below budget, but you're also getting one of those wish list projects that the citizens and you all placed a priority on, included within the actual COP original amount. So that's really exciting. One other thing I want to point out, there's a new item called the MSD Hampton Creek Phase 2 project, $860,000 in the categories of funding. This was part of that MSD agreement that was approved back in May. But MSD wasn't being very clear whether they wanted the city to install that work for MSD to reimburse the city. Frankly, until last week we had a meeting and it became clear that they're going to provide design, the city will construct it, and it will be reimbursed no different than the other project listed above, the CSO Mary Avenue. So I put that in there just to make sure that now that we're going to be moving forward with that based on the executed agreement that you all approved in May, we need to capture that as a reimbursement amount. Down below, the grant amounts are unchanged. And like I mentioned earlier, they are not being utilized for any part of the project. So the city's got the grant funds and the COP investment income to date sitting aside. And the last thing I'll point out is also because of the bids coming in so well, the contingency amount actually went up to $10.8 million. So that's actually more than where it was in June of 2019 when we did the budget update at that work session at the community center. So the city has a healthy amount of contingency. The grant amounts are also sitting there. You can put them in the contingency pile or not. That's up to you all. But all of this is great news. We're really excited. And we're excited that hopefully with your approval of the construction contract, we can start the first step of fixing the flooding issues that have plagued the city for a while. I'll touch on two other things for Alderwoman Tice. She had some questions on the previous update. Alderwoman Tice, some of the questions got answered just by the nature of me doing this new update. But in regards to question 3 on your email about what grant would pay for the Deer Creek Trail, because of the bids coming in so low, we don't need to allocate any money for that grant. So that'll come out of the COP amount, which is great news. And then question 4, you had asked about the MSD grant, if any funds were in the project, and none of those funds are in the project or needed for the project. So that truly is a net benefit to the city, the 1.661 million. So all that's sitting down at the bottom of the form, all of that could be allocated for additional projects or that's it. Any other questions
for Craig?
Sorry.
No questions. Oh, Alderwoman Tice.
Surprise, surprise that I might have a question. So thank you, Craig, for doing this. And it was helpful for me to have the funding categories at the bottom so that we're kind of keep track of where the money's coming from. So I'm hopeful that that is helpful for other members of the board. So Craig, I have a question on your concept of budget. So I'll take construction costs. In May, the construction cost budget was just shy of 33 million. In July and August, the construction budget was 38.2 million, and now the construction budget is 38, just shy of 38.9. So I think my overall question is, typically when you have a budget, you set a number, and then you might add things to it, but it's not actually like you're changing the budget as we're going along.
So I'm reflecting so back in May, I think it was when I was adding the Deer Creek Trail and the MSD projects, because that looks like the MSD agreement was approved on May 18th. So those directly increase the construction costs. And then this month, the construction budget right now says it's 35.898 million. So that's a reflection of updating the flood mitigation phase 1 bid amount, which is the bid amount that's in front of you all time for approval. So I updated it based on that. And because the bid amount came in less, the contingency went up. So you're absolutely right. The budget went down because instead of it being an estimated amount, it's now a real amount. And as a result of that, the contingency went up. So it did bounce between the categories.
Okay. I mean, I understand the math and how it worked. It's just a different concept of the word budget. Because like when you have a city budget, you set the number at the beginning of the year, and then you spend against that, and then there's money left, or if you overspend, you do a budget amendment at the end. It just, I mean, I see what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems not quite the definition of budget when your budget changes so drastically.
You're right. And you're absolutely right. Brentwood's the only city that I do these updates on. I could tell you all the other public clients, we just do a budget at the end of the year that goes in the budget book, and we don't do any changes for the whole year. And we don't do any Board of Aldermen updates. And doing real-time data like this causes confusion a lot. So you're absolutely right. I understand that. And that's one of the reasons why this is not the norm. So We can look at that as a group and decide if we want to just go to the traditional approach of just doing the annual budget update, which is similar to other publicly funded entities, or we can try to keep doing this. I'm open to ideas from anybody.
Well, personally, I like the knowing what's going on every month with the money, so I find that helpful. That might just be me.
Okay. Any other questions for Craig? Okay, assuming the board does not have any objection, I'm going to move back just one quick item. I overlooked both Jim Leahy and John Klaus with Stiefel, who are in attendance. This is on me. So they do have something to say to the board. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to either Jim or John.
Shelley, can you unmute them? They dialed in.
I have someone with the number of 258. They can offer, I don't see their names listed anywhere.
Let's go with 258 and see if that's them.
I tried that earlier.
2258, that's them. That's Jim.
Okay, can you unmute them, please?
They're here, they're on as panelists. And
okay.
They're unmuted.
They're unmuted, but we can't hear them.
They don't know how to do it from their phone. I think it's *6 to mute, or *9 to raise. They're on phone only. Okay, well, I'm going to do an unmute all and see what happens. Sorry, I'm not able to get them to join. I can send them an email web link.
I think that's going to take too long. That's all right. We will. We'll move on.
Who are they looking for?
Ah, is that them? Who's
Yeah.
that?
Sorry, Craig and I were speaking. We might have missed something.
Oh.
Okay. That's still in Craig, I think. All right. Well, let's move on then. The last item on the city administrator report is the temporary outdoor seating at Brentwood Square, the first watch. Is Lisa handling that?
Yes. Yes.
Good evening. So it was the first part of August, I think it was the first week of August, staff was notified or inquired with staff, the Brentwood Square, the property manager there, Pace Properties, they had inquired with staff about what they could do if there was any potential to have outdoor seating with First Watch Restaurant. And this outdoor seating request would really be in order for the restaurant to be able to comply with COVID seating restrictions. So something like this type of request fits in very well with the ordinance number 4919 that was adopted a few months ago. This ordinance enacting emergency measures to protect the public health during the coronavirus pandemic crisis. So the Planning and Development Department and the Fire Department looked at the request from First Watch, and after our review, we went ahead and recommended to the city administrator that this temporary outdoor seating be approved for First Watch Restaurant. The seating will be located on the east side of the building. And the conditions more or less are how many tables and so forth and chairs they can have out there, that everything still must be anchored. And then lastly, that this temporary zoning permit for outdoor seating is good for 90 days, but they could go ahead and also inquire about an extension. So we just wanted to go ahead and report that we received that inquiry from Brentwood Square and from First Watch.
Lisa, do you need any board approval on this?
No.
Okay, great.
Yes, we
Do
just
you have any
use
questions
ordinance.
for Lisa about the action that was taken? Alderman Pluska?
Thanks. I noticed, Lisa, that there's 2 handicap parking spots taken up with this new seating. Were those just moved temporarily to somewhere adjacent?
So the table and chairs would be out on the plaza area. I don't know if someone has maybe put them actually in a handicap spot. I'd have to come out and look at that. That would not be the location where the tables and chairs should be set. So I'll have to maybe go out and look at that tomorrow.
Okay.
Anyone else? Alderwoman Tice.
Mr. Mayor, I was there today and the tables are all on the sidewalk area, bolted down. So they're not in the parking lot. They're actually on the sidewalk in front of the, First Watch.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, great. Well, then let's move on to the consent agenda. I think Alderman Weggie has something he would like to discuss about the consent agenda.
Yeah, I would just request that item I, which is the construction with El Keely, just be pulled off of the consent agenda. And the only reason I asked that, I have no issues. We looked at that at Public Works, but it's a $18 million purchase order, the largest in the history of Brentwood, my research, and just doesn't seem right to go on the consent agenda.
Sure, no problem. We will remove that from the consent agenda. So the remaining items that we have on the consent agenda, I'm not going to go through each and every one of them because there's quite a few. You have them all, but the board would. Any other questions about any of the other items on the consent agenda? Okay, the board would entertain a motion then to approve the consent agenda as amended by removing resolution 1234.
So
moved.
Okay, we've got a motion by Alderwoman Tice, seconded by Alderwoman O'Neill to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on that? Okay, Shelley, can we get a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Eberly,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice,
yes.
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
and Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to old business. We only have one item, and that's bill number 6296. Can we get, I guess it's a second read by title only, please, Mr. City Attorney.
Sorry about that. Bill number 6296, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance to amend Chapter 500 Buildings and Building Regulations to add Article 17, Infill Development, Stormwater Management.
Great. Chair would entertain a motion to perfect bill number 6296 into ordinance form.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion by Alderman Lockmiller, seconded by Alderwoman Tice. Do we have any discussion on this? Okay, seeing none. Roll call, please, Shelley.
Alderwoman Eberly,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice,
Yes.
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
and Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Motion
Mr. Mayor,
passes.
if I may, this was not second reading of the bill.
Oh, it wasn't?
No, sir. The matter is on as old business because it had been discussed before, but the bill was not previously introduced.
Okay,
This
thank
is
you.
first reading, and I believe it is with the staff recommendation for first and second reading.
Okay, so what was the second reading? Will that qualify as the first reading?
The same title, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
First reading only.
I'm sorry, Alderman Weggie?
I thought the recommendation was first reading only.
I defer to Lisa.
Yeah, it says first reading only. Is that right, Lisa?
Yes, it's for first reading. And we did decide to come back for second reading for the first meeting in September. So.
Okay.
I'm sorry for any confusion that's caused.
No worries. Okay, so We've got a first reading on 6296. Do we have any questions for Lisa on this? Alderman Weggie?
Just one, Lisa, and I should know the answer to this, I'll be honest, but when would this go in effect if it's passed in September? Would we wait until the beginning of 2021? The new builds would start, or would it be immediately when ARB reviews start happening?
It will be enacted as soon as upon its passage. And so whatever projects then would start being presented to ARB, those would be the first projects that this would be applied.
Okay, and nothing that had been already reviewed by ARB and approved would be retroactively put on this?
Yes, correct. I mean, it would not be retroactive, correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Lisa or anybody else regarding Bill 6296? If not, we will revisit this at the next Board of Aldermen meeting. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Next on the agenda is we are now to new business, and the first item, we have two, I guess, now. The first will be Bill number 6297. Mr. City Attorney, can we get a reading by title only, please?
Bill number 6297, first reading, an ordinance calling an election to consider imposing a local use tax at the same rate as the local sales tax of the city of Brentwood, Missouri.
Great, thank you. Bola, are we we double teaming on this? How we handling this one?
So the mayor has
I can't hear you very well for some reason.
So I just, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. We've been talking about putting on the ballot, the November ballot, the use tax, so that our brick and mortar stores would have a level playing field as those online retailers. If you recall, the city back in 2017 placed this item on the ballot, and we were not successful in getting the voters to pass this. And given COVID, what's going on with COVID, it becomes even more important for the city to put this item on the ballot. We know that neighboring municipalities, Maplewood and Richmond Heights, for instance, have had their voters pass this for several years now. And the city of Clayton, within the last 2 years, maybe, at least 2 years. So I have Rod Wright also in my office this evening, have also brought this before their voters, and they've passed this use tax. So most use tax revenues come from large companies, we know, such as property developers that make out-of-state purchases of materials and supplies. So those are the majority of people that, or companies that will be paying this use tax to the city of Brentwood. This is fiscally responsible way to protect the city's revenue as more and more sales shift to online purchases. I know I was talking to Major McIntyre this afternoon, and he just shared with me anecdotally that he was talking to UPS drivers, and they're saying that before, a bulk of their deliveries were to businesses, and now they're seeing that shift to the residential areas. So despite the fact that people are being laid off and companies are scaling back on how they disperse their monies, residents here near and far are still purchasing online. The state of Missouri already collects the use tax, and what we are asking for is just to add the local municipal portion, which is the city of Brentwood portion. No one will pay both taxes. If the local tax is paid, the use tax is not collected. And the use tax will continue to help us provide the outstanding services that we provide to our residents. I provide in board docs additional information. 45 days after this use tax is passed by our voters, the Board of Aldermen would need to decide how they would want this tax calculated, whether it would be similar to a capital improvement tax, which is an 85%, 15% ratio. And that is what we are recommending in terms of how we would retain our portion of that tax. I also talked to the county board election today, And for putting this item on the November ballot, it will cost the city, and these are very approximate numbers. They're estimates, and they tell me that we won't know the exact cost until afterwards. So the range is between $3,800 and $11,000. The last time we put an item on the November ballot, they gave us similar numbers, and it came close to 6,000. So in the whole scheme of things, looking at how much revenue the city could potentially see from this use tax, it ranges from 295,000 to 385,000, and those are very conservative figures. To spend about $6,000 if it ends up being that, to put this on the ballot is a minuscule amount. So I have Rod here with me as well. I'll throw it back to the mayor if you had anything to add. Otherwise, we'll take questions.
Great, thanks, Bola. Yeah, and I have already addressed this at prior meetings during the mayor's report, but just to repeat myself, the whole point of going forward with this, once again, is in light of the effects of the pandemic. The concern that I've had and other mayors have had across the state is that we're going to see a change in shopping patterns. We've already seen it. The anecdotal statement from the UPS driver about how more and more people now seem to be ordering things online. And what that does is it robs the city of the necessary sales tax revenue. Number two, it hurts the businesses in Brentwood that have invested hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to invest in our community. And I think it's incumbent upon us to take reasonable steps to try to protect those businesses that have done that have made that investment, and also to try and capture some revenue that all indications are that we are going to lose because, again, people not wanting to get out into the stores, and they realize the ease of purchasing things online. Now, Missouri is one of only 2 states in the entire country that does not have a use tax, the other one being Florida. And I've attended a number of meetings dealing with this, and we have a legislative problem in Jeff City. There's just a handful of legislators there, Republican legislators, that are absolutely opposed to passing a use tax at the state level. Regardless, that does not prevent Brentwood from benefiting from having its own use tax. As Bola has indicated, both Clayton, Richmond Heights, and Maplewood have some. Some of these retailers are voluntarily collecting the sales tax or use tax, even though they're not obligated to do so by the state of Missouri, and they're remitting that money. And that might be because the state of Missouri is requiring it for those companies to participate in state contracts. Regardless of the motivation, there are a lot of retailers that are collecting this, and they're remitting it to these municipalities. We aren't getting ours because we simply do not have a use tax in place. And again, I would encourage this board to authorize putting this on the ballot. And unlike the last time we did this, which I think was in 16 or 17, we really took no effort to try and educate the public. That's the difference here. 2 things are different. Number one, we have the pandemic, and number 2, we are going to do our best to ensure that people understand this is not a double taxation, that this is simply a way to try and ensure a continued stream of revenue that this city needs in order to provide the services, the vital services that they become accustomed to. So I would encourage this board to support this, to put this on the November ballot. And again, we are asking for both the first and second reading because it has to be passed this month in order to get it on the November ballot. So with that, any questions? Alderman Plufka. You're muted. You're still muted.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Well, you had alluded to the fact that there have been other municipalities that have done this successfully. Have you been able to identify any resources or any spokesperson or anybody who would be able to help educate in the manner that the mayor was talking about, so we might do a better job of getting our voters so that they understand that since there is no use tax in the state of Missouri, that this is largely an effort to try to trap voluntarily paid tax dollars into the state that are not coming back to the city of Brentwood because we don't have a mechanism for doing that, and then this would supply that. Is there any, is there any way we can tap into something that might help us better educate our voters between now and when this is on the ballot?
Thank you, Alderman Plufka. The Board of Aldermen actually did that a couple of meetings ago with the approval of a contract with Unicom Arc Creative Entourage, and Rod's in here, and they've started that effort already. Rod, anything you want to add? Anything you want to add?
And while Rod's deciding whether or not to add anything, I would just, this is the same company that that we used to help with the EDSP to make sure we get the word out on that, and that was successful. This company also worked with the city of Clayton in getting Clayton's passed. And Bola brought to all your attention, there's a survey out right now that we're trying to get some input to find out the best way to market this. Alderman Plufka, to your point, to make sure that people understand the difference now versus 3 years ago.
Thank you.
We're also working to develop frequently asked questions that we will disseminate to our residents so that would help them to different scenarios that they may question. Do I pay use tax? Do I pay sales tax? So once that is final, we will, Janet will help us upload that to the website.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yeah, somewhere I was reading about one of the cities that had it passed because they used the phrase internet use tax, which alerted people that it's not just another tax, which is what I kept hearing last time. Is it possible to look at writing the provision somehow to include that phrase, or at least use it frequently in our education process so that people really realize this is not another tax, it is an internet use tax?
I'll jump in on that, Alderman. This is Kevin O'Keefe. I won't speak to using the term internet sales tax or internet use tax in educational materials, but the ballot language is substantially fixed by the statute authorizing the tax. Now, there can be some tweaking around the edge, but internet tax is inaccurate and does not describe the full impact of the tax. It does for the 99% of the consumers, but if an item is purchased out of state and it's not subject to sales tax, it's subject to use tax, no matter the platform or the means by which it was purchased. So it's not an internet sales tax. Like we can't get it on the ballot. We can't use that terminology in the ballot. We may be able to use it as a shorthand in the education campaign, and I think Rod has some comments on it.
Yeah, I can add to that. At least in Clayton, when it was on the ballot, the biggest money was coming from construction projects and construction companies making out-of-state purchases on the construction project. For example, down on Brentwood Bound, when that happens, if someone doing the work down there makes a purchase in, I'll pick any state, Michigan, the use tax gets applied to that purchase. Right now, Missouri collects its portion of it. On something like that, Brentwood would get the local portion, the way I understand it. And to follow up on Kevin's point, that's not an internet purchase. That's someone getting on the phone or making an order from a company in whatever the state is. My experience with this, looking at a lot of the places that's been on the ballot in the state, is that when people know what this is, they like it. So the challenge is just making sure they understand what it is, because it's got kind of a funny name. Use tax doesn't mean anything, kind of in your gut and how you respond to things. And in Clayton, there was some confusion over use tax and utility tax because of the U, and we had to make sure people understood it wasn't an increased sales tax on utilities.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the big difference that we're doing this time versus last time. We're taking a concerted effort to educate the residents so they understand that this is actually a good thing for them. Do we have any other questions for Rod or Dan Cook or Kevin about this? Can I get a motion for a second read? Got a motion by Alderwoman Ebeling.
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Sims. All in favor of the motion for a second read, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, can we get a second read of Bill 6297, please?
Bill number 6297, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance calling an election to consider imposing a local use tax at the same rate as the local sales tax of the city of Brentwood, Missouri.
Great, thank you. Can we get a motion to perfect Bill 6297 into ordinance form?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Alderwoman Ebeling, seconded by, I'm not sure. Raise your hand if you want to get credit for it. Okay. Any discussion on that? Okay, roll call, please, Shelley.
Alderwoman Ebeling,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice,
Yes.
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
and Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Motion passes 8 yea, 0 nay. Bill number 6297 becomes ordinance number 4933.
Great, thank you. I think the last thing under new business is resolution 1234.
Correct.
From the consent agenda, item I. Okay, Bola, do we have somebody that can speak to that? Would that be Craig, maybe? He's still with us?
Yes, yes, he's still here. Or Dan. But Craig, are you ready?
Oh, Dan, yeah, Craig, if you're ready, go ahead and give the some idea of what is going on with resolution 1234.
Okay, sure. So this is what I spoke about during the Brentwood Bound update, that the city received bids on July 30th for the flood mitigation phase 1 contractor. The city received 7 bids, I believe, and there were 2 that were actually really tight. That's always a good sign, because that means that the bids are, the bidders had a good understanding of the drawings, which says a lot about what the work that Jacobs and Planning Design Studio did. So, but yeah, overall the bids came in, like I mentioned, over $2 million over budget, and the city then, with staff and consultants, interviewed the low bidders. We worked with MSD to make sure that, since they're a partner, they approved of the low bidder, and they agreed. They provided their concurrence because the low bidder, who is Keeley, is a deep sewer contractor with MSD. So Dan presented this to Public Works last Thursday. I believe Public Works passed it 4-0. So we have that committee support, and we bring it all to you all for a hopeful first and second reading tonight, because we are eager to start construction with summer and fall, with summer winding down and fall quickly approaching us, because this project will take 700 days to complete it. So there's a lot of work ahead of us, and utilizing the good weather that while we have it, and also making sure we maintain this momentum with MSD support is important to the project. So we kindly ask for your all consideration. Thank you.
Great. Do we have any questions or comments for Craig on resolution 1234?
It doesn't say what. It doesn't say what's going to be with the contract with Keeley. It doesn't say where the contract is.
Hey, Shelley, can we mute everybody? We're getting some bleed over here.
It says we selected the proposal in this manner in the resolution.
Oh, Alderman Weggie.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no questions, then I'll make a motion to pass resolution 1234. Just wanted to get more attention to the board on it.
Where's the
second?
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion by Alderman Weggie, seconded by Alderman Lockmuller to approve resolution 1234. Can we get roll call, please, Shelley?
Alderwoman Ebeling,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice,
Yes.
Alderman Plupka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
and Alderman Whitey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Next on the agenda is citizen comments. Anybody in the public care to address the board? Now is the time to do so. You will be given up to 3 minutes. And I don't see any hands yet. Shelley, do you see the same thing?
There's no hand.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, then the chair would entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to RSMO 610.021 subsection 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderwoman O'Neill, seconded by Alderwoman Sims. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Ebling,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice,
Yes.
Alderman Plupka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
and Alderman Whitey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you, everybody. We will reconvene in about 3-4 minutes. This should not take very long. We will adjourn our regular meeting from the closed session. Okay, thank you.